A quick search for mystery cases on the internet will return results of alien and UFO encounters, sightings of Yetis and the Mothman, strange weather phenomena, and even glitches in the Matrix as people upload inexplicable experiences that they've had. But some mysteries aren't as well known as others, as they've seemingly faded into obscurity, only remembered by those who live in the areas where these strange cases occurred. Number 5. In modern times, many people consult their horoscope or psychic mediums when they're uncertain about what the future holds. And although many people believe this to be helpful, most think that these practices hold very little merit, as many psychic mediums have been ousted as frauds, and there's no proof that our destiny lies in the constellations. Things were much different back in the 18th and 19th centuries, when superstition and a fear of evil spirits were very real. And one woman in particular seemed to possess unusual powers that astonished members of the New Orleans French Quarter in the early 1800s, as she seemingly mastered the art of voodoo. The date of Marie Laveau's birth is disputed, as some sources state that she was born in 1794, while others claim she was actually born in 1901 in the New Orleans French Quarter. She was the daughter of Charles Laveau, a rich plantation owner, and a woman named Margaret d'Arcantrell, who was believed to have been his mistress. During her childhood, she studied the Bible and attended church on a daily basis, while growing up on her father's plantation. She had ambitions of becoming a hairdresser, a goal that she would eventually achieve. She would even marry a man named Jacques Perry in 1819, 10 years after he immigrated to America from Haiti. Along with the people who immigrated at the time came a revival of voodoo practices in New Orleans. 5 years after the couple got married, Perry mysteriously disappeared, and although many people believe he decided to leave Marie and start a new life somewhere else, she insisted that he had passed away, leaving her to look after the 2 children that they had together. This is when Marie's dream of becoming a hairdresser came to be. She was well known in the area and tended to the more affluent women of the community, often lending an ear to their problems and secrets that no one else knew about. She would then start a relationship with Louis-Christophe Dumanil de Clépierre, another well-known member of the New Orleans community. They would go on to have a further 15 children, and after he passed away in 1855, Marie left her position as a hairdresser to look after them. But during this time, her interest in voodoo started to rise, and she started learning about its practices from a man known as John Bayou, or Dr. John. She seemed to have a natural talent, and by 1830, she'd become a well-known voodoo queen, but stayed true to her Catholic upbringing, often including elements like holy water in the rituals that she performed. Since many people believed that voodoo was an evil practice, the inclusion of these elements seemed to make it more accessible, and soon she had many clients that included members of New Orleans' most wealthy citizens. It didn't take long for Marie to be considered the most prominent voodoo queen of New Orleans, as she promised to aid people with their finances, get rid of their enemies, answer perplexing questions about their futures, and supply them with magical artifacts that would ward away evil or bring them good luck in the future. Her voodoo rituals became the stuff of legend, and she was soon asked to bring her talents to Maison Blanche, a house where secret voodoo meetings were held on a regular basis. She would get rid of supposed hexes, treat diseases with strange ingredients, and even claim to have the ability to drive evil spirits from those that had become possessed. It didn't take long for word to spread, and Marie proclaimed herself to be an oracle, deposing all other voodoo queens in New Orleans. She moved into a cottage on Ann Street, and here she would conduct private sessions with her clients, still mixing voodoo and Catholic elements as she did so. But not everyone was convinced by Marie's powers. Some people remembered that she acquired a long list of wealthy clients while she was working as a hairdresser, and believed that she manipulated these clients' servants into revealing their employer's secrets, which she then pretended to have supernatural knowledge of. They also theorized that she would keep her ears open while visiting wealthy clients who she knew from her days as a hairdresser. Any gossip that she was privy to could be seen as a valuable resource for future consultations. Whatever the case may be, Marie's reputation skyrocketed despite her being branded as a fake who preyed upon the superstitious and more ignorant people of New Orleans by some newspapers. This skepticism had a little effect on Marie, as she continued to baffle and amaze those who visited her, as she seemingly had an answer for any problem or ailment, including matters of romance, finance, vengeance, and she was even said to be able to cure women who couldn't bear children. There are also tales of horrible things happening to those who stood against her, and while many revered her dark and magical powers, others were frightened by her and thought it better to steer clear of her path. But her reign as Voodoo Queen wouldn't go unattested, as many other practitioners believed that they had superior powers that were not being acknowledged. One woman was known only as Rosalie and started to gain recognition for her voodoo talents in 1850, and she decided that she should be named queen. To instill a sense of fear in members of the community, she placed a large wooden doll in front of her house, claiming that it originated in Africa. She hung beads from the doll and pointed out the strange carvings that it contained, successfully causing quite a stir in the French Quarter. This naturally irked Marie as people started expressing the fear and awe that they had for Rosalie, and she knew that she had to do something about the situation. She decided to have the statue stolen from Rosalie's yard, which resulted in a lawsuit that saw it returned to her. But the doll would not be present for long, as Marie used the connections that she'd built up with the upper class of New Orleans to have the doll removed from Rosalie's property for good, and the threat to her title as Queen of Voodoo was no more. Marie would eventually move to Algiers, where she continued to baffle people with her knack for voodoo and her ability to help those who sought her help with any issues that they were experiencing in their lives. She would eventually pass away in 1881 with her reputation intact, but her passing would see a shift in the number of people who felt that voodoo held the answers to their problems, and other religions became more prominent. Marie Laveau is still spoken about in New Orleans today, as many people believe she would be canonized as a saint. Her name can still be heard in gambling parlors as it's shouted when a pair of dice is rolled. Many people believe that Marie never left, as there have been several reports of people who claim to have seen her roaming the streets of New Orleans, as if she's still connected to the area in the afterlife. Whether her powers were real or not, Marie Laveau will forever be considered by many people to be the undisputed voodoo queen of New Orleans. Number 4. Most of us had some kind of fear when we were children. Whether it was that we were afraid of the dark, the boogeyman, or ghosts, most people can remember lying in their beds as a child while worrying about something that might sneak in and scare us. As we're adults, we can understand these fears all too well, but we don't take them too seriously, since we know that those things that go bump in the night are usually explainable as the wind, strange shadows, or the remnants from watching a horror movie. But one phenomenon that occurred in Provincetown, Massachusetts in 1939 truly terrified the children of the area, and at first it was shrugged off as just another childhood fear, until the adults of the town started experiencing the same thing. The town was no stranger to weird events that year, as there had been reports of a sea monster that washed up on the beach, though this was later determined to be a basking shark. A man was arrested for setting fire to several homes, and the annual number of dog bites had skyrocketed. But all of these events paled in comparison to the Black Flash, a strange apparition that was seen in the town by multiple people who described it as utterly terrifying, and it's still spoken about in the area today. The first sighting of the Black Flash occurred when a group of school children were walking home after class. When they eventually made it home, they told their parents that something had jumped out at them and scared them. They stated that the apparition, which was dressed completely black from head to toe, appeared out of thin air and started growling at them. But it vanished just as quickly as it had appeared, and they were unable to get a proper look at it. Most of the adults didn't take these reports seriously, since they thought it was nothing more than the children's imaginations. But then something happened that very quickly changed their minds, and they didn't know what to make of it. A woman named Maria Costa reported that she was walking through the town one evening, and her path led her past Provincetown's town hall, when the same dark apparition jumped out from the bushes next to the road and landed directly in front of her. She managed to get a better look at it and described it as being impossibly tall compared to a human. She added that it had blue eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness and strange silver ears. It had the ability to jump great heights and lengths, and so she knew that she had to get away from it as quickly as possible, or she might be unable to outrun it. She immediately bolted for a nearby coffee shop, shouting about what she had just seen, and a few of the men that were present decided to investigate. They ran out of the coffee shop and into the street, expecting to find the strange specter still lurking about, but it had already fled, and all they had to go on was Mrs. Costa's word that she had seen something ominous and terrifying. They decided to inform the police, but the report wasn't taken seriously, as they thought Mrs. Costa must have been seeing something else and attributed it to the story that the school children had told their parents. But they would soon be inundated with reports of sightings of the creature. The story was seemingly always the same. Someone would be walking along minding their own business when the tall, dark figure suddenly appeared or jumped out at them with a low, menacing growl. The creature would soon be given several nicknames, including the Provincetown Phantom, the Devil of the Dunes, but the most widely used moniker is what's still used today, the Black Flash of Provincetown. The police had no choice but to take the multiple reports seriously, and so they launched an investigation. Those who had seen the strange figure were certain that it was some kind of paranormal apparition that wore a black hood and a cape, and was able to escape with superhuman speed. In some instances, investigators were dealing with one call about the creature when another came in, stating that it had run through someone's garden, or that it had appeared in a certain area of town and was still there. News of this strange occurrence soon began to spread across the country, and soon everyone was talking about the ominous and terrifying Black Flash. Word spread to other countries, and in no time, Provincetown and its phantom had gained a creepy reputation all over the world. But not everyone was as quick to buy into the story, as many people believed the creature to be the creation of a group of teenagers who were playing a prank on the entire town. Some believed that they sat on each other's shoulders, covered themselves in a black cape, and placed a flour sieve over the top person's face, giving the impression that it had large silver ears or eyes. Other people in the town thought that the Flash was nothing more than a peeping Tom that had nothing better to do with their time, but neither of these theories would explain how the figure was able to appear out of nowhere and then run away at impossible speed. One theory that may explain this is that the apparition was actually an athlete who lived in the town. He was known to be extraordinarily fast and would be the only one who could come close to the speeds reported by those who saw the Black Flash, but this has not been proven. The Black Flash didn't stay in town for very long, and just a few weeks later, he no longer appeared to anyone. The last time that it was spotted was by a group of children while they were playing outside. They reported that it appeared to them from a fog that rolled in that day, and as soon as they saw the strange figure, they ran away as fast as they could. They made it to one of the children's houses and knocked furiously to be let in, only to discover that no one was home. Nevertheless, they managed to find a way in and hide, listening to the horrible sounds of the creature trying to find a way in. One boy decided to switch a kettle on, and after the water had boiled, he ran upstairs and poured it over the creature's head. It's said that this was the final act that convinced the Black Flash to leave forever, as it never appeared again after that day. The true identity of the Black Flash of Provincetown remains an unsolved mystery that has baffled the town for more than 8 decades. Number 3. If you've ever been the victim of a home robbery, you'll be familiar with the horrible feeling of having your own privacy invaded, knowing that someone was inside your house or apartment, searching through your belongings and choosing what to steal while you weren't there. It's a truly unnerving experience, but it can only be worse to realize that someone was in your living space while you were asleep and helpless, as you inevitably end up thinking about all the scenarios that could have played out. Then there's the arduous task of replacing all of the items that were stolen. But that isn't always possible, as is evidenced in several cases that occurred in Pascagoula, Mississippi in 1942, while the Second World War was still raging on. It was something that no one could have expected, since just about everyone was focused on the war. And when the police started receiving reports that someone had been letting themselves into people's homes at night, they could not have foreseen that extra twist that came along with these reports. The first complaints were 2 girls named Mary Evelyn Briggs and Edna Marie Heidel. They were both staying at the Our Lady of Victory convent and shared a bedroom with windows that were covered by a screen. Mary reported that she'd been sleeping when she was suddenly awakened in the middle of the night by a feeling that someone was in the room with them. Just a moment later, she realized that she was correct and saw someone standing over her with a shiny object in their hand. She noted that the shiny object was a pair of scissors, which instantly frightened her. But the man put fingers to his lips, indicating to Mary that she should keep quiet. But she instantly started to scream for help, prompting the man to jump out of the window as Edna had also woken up by this point. She would tell investigators that the man was short and chubby, and that when she woke up, he seemed to be playing with her hair. But as soon as he fled, Mary and Edna both realized that they were missing locks of their hair that the man had cut off, but had not been harmed otherwise. When the area around the girl's room was searched, it was found that the screen in front of the window had been cut open, and a group of sniffer dogs were brought in. They managed to find the man's scent and followed it for a short distance before it disappeared, and there was little hope that he would be captured. But this would not be the last time that the man, who's become known as the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula, would strike. Less than a week later, a girl woke up in the room that she shared with her twin brother to discover that she was also missing a lock of hair, and it was noted that her brother still had all of his. It was then noted that both intrusions had happened at around midnight, and that the man had cut the screens on the windows at both houses. This time, the only thing that was found was a sandy footprint that the man had left on one of the beds in the room. Since the Phantom Barber had struck twice with the same MO, people started to fear that their houses would be targeted next, and decided to nail their windows shut. But the Phantom Barber would soon be rumored to have crossed the line from cutting people's hair to outright assault, causing even more panic in the surrounding areas. A short while after the second invasion, someone broke into a house owned by husband and wife Terrell and Lillian Heidelberg. This time, the shiny object being wielded by the intruder wasn't a pair of scissors, but a pipe which he used to assault the couple, though they wouldn't be seriously injured. Opinion was divided on whether these invasions had been committed by the same person, since the crimes committed were drastically different. Everyone in the area began to fear that their houses would be the next target, and a sense of unease started to seep into the community. They didn't have to wait long for their answer though, as the barber struck again a short while later. This time, he targeted the home of a woman known as Mrs. E.A. Taylor, also while she was asleep in bed. She told the police that she woke up in the middle of the night and became aware of a strong and horrible smell in her house. It would later be theorized that the smell was caused by chloroform that was used to keep the man's victim at bay. But this has since been ruled out since chloroform doesn't cause someone to instantly lose consciousness. Mrs. Taylor stated that the smell was so strong that she started to feel sick, and it took a while for her to get her wits about her. When she finally realized what was going on, she found that 2 inches of her hair had been cut. But this time, the Phantom Barber was nowhere to be seen, as he had already made his escape. The entire situation was made all the more difficult to investigate, since the town was being subjected to blackout regulations, thanks to the ongoing war that forced most areas to operate with minimal resources. People were also told to keep their lights off at night, since the darkness made it much harder for enemy forces to find the areas where they were supposed to attack from the air. Some people took to installing blackout curtains, which stopped the light from being seen from outside, allowing them to keep the light on in their rooms during the night. Quite unbelievably, the Phantom's crimes would have an effect on the war, as many men refused to work at the Ingalls shipyard at night, since they had to keep their families safe from this man who was prowling around at night. Investigators were no closer to identifying, let alone capturing the barber, and they eventually announced a $3,000 reward to anyone who had information leading to his arrest, and the arrest would come sooner than everyone thought. In August of that year, 57-year-old chemist William Dolan was arrested after it was suspected that he was responsible for attacking the Heidelberg couple with a pipe, since he was known to have had a disagreement with Terrell's father. As the investigation progressed, his house was searched and a collection of human hair was found, along with a pair of barber's scissors. He was sentenced to 10 years behind bars, but he insisted that they had arrested the wrong man. He would spend the next 6 years in prison before being given a lie detector test, which he passed, and he was released, leaving everyone to wonder who the Phantom Barber really was and why he had stopped invading homes when Dolan was arrested. While many people believe that Dolan was indeed responsible, there was never any proof that he was the Phantom of Pascagoula, and it's a mystery that may never be solved. Number 2. If you've ever visited a funhouse, you'll be familiar with the warped mirrors that distort your reflection into that of a short or exceptionally tall person. But what if this were to happen without the use of mirrors, while you were just out and about in the woods one day? Many people would consider this to be akin to a paranormal event, and this is the feeling that many visitors to Montana experience when they encounter the Montana Vortex, which is situated near Highway 2. The area is now a tourist attraction, formerly known as the House of Mystery, and people from all over the world travel to experience the 3 strange vortexes that exist there, as they have an interesting effect on the surrounding area. Trees that are situated near the vortex grow at an angle rather than straight up. When this was first discovered, many people believed that the trees grew this way due to the heavy snowfall that occurs there every year, but it was then noticed that trees outside the vortex grew normally. Another strange effect that the vortex has is to make a person look taller or shorter than they actually are. When visiting the House of Mystery, which is located near the 3 vortexes, you'd be asked to stand on a level spot close to the house, which lists unnervingly to one side. You'd then be given a construction level to make sure that your spot is completely level. And when you move from one side of the vortex to the other, you'll either gain or lose around 6 inches of height, depending on the side you're standing on. Photos taken of people standing on either side of this vortex show them differing greatly in height, but when they switch sides, the taller one becomes the shorter one, and the shorter one becomes taller. But the weirdness doesn't end there. If you were to walk inside the listing house, you would find that gravity suddenly stops working in a conventional way that we're used to. Visitors are shown how this effect works by being shown a broom that seems to balance itself on its bristles without any human intervention, despite the floor being completely crooked. You can try your hand at climbing a ladder, something that should be simple enough, but here gravity makes it much harder to reach the top step, since it feels like you're being pulled back towards the ground. But then there's another challenge that has the very opposite effect. If you were to attempt to lift something heavy while inside the house, you may find that it takes you no effort whatsoever, as it suddenly becomes much lighter than it should be. It's said that as you step inside the House of Mystery, you'll become aware that you're heavier than you were moments earlier, and that it isn't as easy to perform normal tasks as it should be. Many people who have taken photos inside the house have reported that they discover orbs when the photos are inspected more closely, leading many to believe that the vortexes could be portals to either the afterlife or another dimension altogether. But the owner of the property, Joe Hauser, says that the vortexes are nothing more than swirls of electromagnetic energy that overlap each other. He adds that this amount of energy swirling around in one area creates chaos, resulting in these strange occurrences. Strangely, most people will only become aware of this feeling of the vortexes once they approach them, while others can feel their push and pull as soon as they arrive and get out of their cars in the parking lot. While most people report the same experiences, some feel the effects of the vortexes differently, while others barely seem to notice that they're there at all. The property first belonged to Joe and Marge Hauber when they purchased the land back in 1965. Their initial plan was to settle down on the property to enjoy their retirement, but they soon became aware that something strange was going on. They noticed that when they walked into a certain area of the property, they would begin to feel strange, and they were at a loss as to what may be causing it. They then learned that there was a similar vortex in Oregon that had the same strange effect on people, and they decided to turn the area into a tourist attraction, building the crooked house in the process for extra effect. The house is built directly on one of the vortexes that's thought to be the smallest of the 3, with the center of the vortex situated right in the middle of the floor. A chair has been placed against one of the house's walls, and guests are asked to sit down and then stand up, but find themselves unable to get out of the chair. Another fun activity is to bring along a few marbles that can then be rolled uphill while inside the house, while a rope that's been suspended from the house's ceiling can be seen curving away unnaturally, rather than hanging straight down. Luckily, the vortexes have no effect on people when they leave the house, as they all report feeling completely normal when they step outside. It's believed that the Blackfeet tribe were the first people to notice the vortexes. They still believe that it holds a spiritual significance and that the area should be considered as sacred. But Hauser says that not everyone who comes to visit the vortexes has a good time. There are some skeptics who travel to the area with the sole intention of debunking the phenomena, but he says that these visits usually end the same way, with those people leaving without an explanation for what they've experienced. While it's known that these strange experiences are caused by chaotic electromagnetic energy fields, it still isn't known what causes them, and thus many people are adamant that there is something otherworldly happening in the woods of Montana. It's a mysterious place indeed, but while some people find it confusing and somewhat terrifying, others find it a good area to meditate, as they feel it gives them a sense of peace and tranquility that they're unable to find anywhere else. Number 1. Much debate surrounds the existence of cryptids, strange, unnatural creatures that are not supposed to exist, but keep being sighted all around the world. And in some cases, these creatures have reached the status of legend. The most famous example is without a doubt the creature known as Bigfoot. These ape-like creatures have been spotted in wooded areas all over the world and have captured the imaginations of cryptid hunters for many, many decades. Another is the ever-elusive and well-known Loch Ness Monster that's said to swim in the depths of Scotland's Highlands. Though this creature has been captured in photos and videos on many occasions, its existence is still unconfirmed, as only small parts of its body have ever been seen. But while these two creatures are large and intimidating, they don't instill the sense of fear that comes with some cryptids, such as the Rake, a white humanoid cryptid that's said to copy the calls of a human in need of help. Anyone who hears one of these creatures shrieking away in the dead of night is warned to run away as quickly as possible, since its cries for help are a lure that'll bring their victims close enough for it to pounce on. Another cryptid that strikes fear into the hearts of those who come across it is the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp, which is situated in Bishopville, South Carolina. This creature was first sighted in 1988, and it remains an unsolved mystery that perplexes the people of this area to this day. It's said that on one particularly dark night, a man was driving home from work and his path took him directly past Scape Ore Swamp. Just as he reached the area, he felt that there was something wrong with his car and he decided to stop and take a look. He got out of his car and noticed that one of his tires was flat, though he had no idea what may have caused it to rupture. But with no other choice, he set about changing it so that he could get home. But that's when he started to feel like he wasn't alone. He looked around into the darkness to see if anyone was around, but was shocked to see a strange creature emerging from the bushes next to the road. He would later relay his experience to the police, describing the creature as green, wet, and scaly. He added that it had red eyes, 3 fingers on each hand, and that it stood at least 7 feet tall. He immediately jumped back into his car, started the engine, and drove away as fast as he could. But just when he thought he was in the clear, the creature appeared next to the car and started attacking it with its strange claws. When the man got home, he inspected his car and found that the creature had ripped the side mirror off and that there were deep gouges in the car's roof. He immediately reported the incident to the police. This may seem like an outlandish tale, and the police officers who took the man's statement must have thought that he was losing his mind. But then more reports started coming in of people who had the same experience of a strange, tall, green creature attacking their vehicles. If anyone was in doubt whether this creature was real, their doubts were laid to rest when Lee County Sheriff Liston Truesdale reported that a couple hiking in Bishopville had awoken one morning to find that their car had been vandalized, but the damage was of such a type that it could not have been caused by a human. The car's hood ornament had been broken off by force. Parts of the car's body had been chewed up, and the wiring had been ripped out, seemingly with ease. Then more reports started coming in, with more people finding that their cars had been chewed on by some creature, and the legend of the Lizard Man began to grow. People would call the police to report that they had seen a massive green creature walking around in the woods. On one occasion, a set of strange footprints with just 3 large toes was found in the swamps, and police officers made a plaster cast as proof. At one point, police were being inundated by calls reporting sightings of the creature, and they started considering getting the FBI involved, but ultimately decided against it since there was no solid proof that a green lizard creature was causing the damage to these vehicles. As time went by, sightings of the creature became less common, though it was seen on occasion by people who were traveling past Scape Ore Swamp. The creature had seemingly grown tired of chewing on cars and terrifying people in the dead of night, and although it was being spoken about often, the lizard man had faded into mythical status. That is, until 2015, when a photo emerged that many people believe is proof that the lizard man really does exist, and that he still lives in the swamps where he was spotted for the first time decades ago. A woman named Sarah Barra, who lives in the area, had just stepped out of church when she spotted something in the woods and decided to take a photo of it. In the photo, the creature can be clearly seen as it walks past the church with its red eyes glowing. It has a very thick tail, much like a kangaroo's, and long toes, 3 on each foot. Its fingers are elongated, and its feet seem much too big for the rest of its body, but not everyone is convinced that the photo and the creature are what Sarah claims. Many have expressed disappointment in the photo, stating that it's clearly someone wearing a lizard suit, and that it's all an elaborate hoax that's been set up by Sarah and an accomplice. But there are also those who believe the image to be authentic, as they've come across the creature before and state that the photo shows exactly what they saw. To add credence to her claim, Sarah stated that she took the photo less than a mile from an area where the creature was last seen a few months earlier, and she's convinced that the lizard man is indeed real. The very next day, a man came forward with a video that he had taken, showing the same creature that was captured on Sarah's camera. He stated that he didn't come forward with the footage since he was afraid of being ridiculed, but when Sarah released her photo, he decided that he needed to do the same. In the video, the same bulky figure can be seen running into the woods, seemingly looking for shelter after being spotted, but again, not everyone believes the footage to be authentic, claiming that it could have easily been done with a friend dressed up in a suit. One of the latest sightings occurred when Jim Wilson was driving along Highway 34, and he saw the creature running into the woods. He described it as looking like an alligator with long legs and a short nose. Whether the lizard man of Scape Ore Swamp is real or not is still up for debate, but it's a legend that isn't going away anytime soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.